Yeah, we didn't really add that slide in, did we?
No. Hello, everybody.
Hello. Welcome back if you're back. Welcome if you haven't joined Carissa and I before. Let us know where you're from. If you'd like, we'll give everybody a few minutes to join the room. Hello from Borden. Hello, Rochelle.
Moose Jaw, yeah.
Hey.
I think we've had Lisa. I think Lisa from Moose Jaw was here, unless she was on my Tuesday.
Yes, okay.
Yes, okay. Good. Trenton, hello. How are those jets this morning? Jets and big carrier things.
Can you tell you don't work on
We're
an
not
Air Force base?
Perfect, thank you. I'm sure they're doing fine. Okay, good.
Oh, hello, Rachel. Trenton too.
Yes, okay, awesome, nice. There's a lot of Air Force people. Rainy Comox. Yeah, see? Air Force.
Yes, Comox is beautiful though. I love it there.
Oh my
I've
gosh,
been
I would
to
move there.
what's it called? The Kingfisher Spa. I stayed out there a couple of nights with a friend. It was so awesome.
Oh, I need to go to a spa.
Yes.
Desperately. Drippy Vancouver. Okay, so the West Coast is wet today. The wet coast, as it often is known. Oh, Quebec,
Yeah.
bonjour. That's all I'm going to try to say in French because I'll just embarrass myself.
Yes, Chris. Yeah. Yeah. Let's all go there. We'll go together. We can do our
we'll do our webinar from there.
Yes.
You two in English? Okay. Thank you.
And you can see my last name is French, Florin, but it's not good. I moved to Alberta when I was 9 months old, so sadly, I'm old and didn't really learn those skills as a young child.
All right. Well, so Heather and I were sort of noting that we are young, you are young. We all feel young.
I was just telling Carissa that I'm letting my gray grow. I figure if I'm working from home, now's the time to just let it happen. So I'm making that transition now.
Yep. Just gonna go au naturel.
Yep.
which
You can't really tell today, but it's there. Looking a little skunky these days.
It's all good. It's all good. I think somebody posted that that's why everybody was posting Facebook avatars because they hadn't gone to the hairdresser lately and nobody wants to put selfies up, so they had to put their cartoon versions. Thank you, Melissa. All right. So I feel like Heather's the in charge today. She's in the driver's seat. And from what she could see of the names, we've got some people that we had last week, but we've got some new folks. So we didn't know kind of how many previous participants and how many new to the series participants we have. So we hadn't really thought about doing a real in-depth review, but so maybe we'll just chat very briefly just so that we can get everybody who might have not missed or might have missed last week caught up, if that's okay with everyone. And then because we have to review the homework, right? So all of you did your homework, and if you are new to the series, then you will know that there is going to be homework coming for you at the end of this one. So yeah. So Heather, if you want to take it away, and then we can sort of patch together a review.
Sure. So in this session today, we're going to pick up where we left off last week, and we're going to move on to simply thinking about success and what it looks like to the conversations that we have with ourselves. So what does our self-talk look like? Are we saying things that support us and help us move forward in life, or that shut us down and act really in a way that's going to super sabotage us? We have all of those, both kinds of things in those conversations, and we know we end up feeling after we have let ourselves talk ourselves into succeeding or into giving up or undermining our confidence, that it becomes really problematic in how well we're going to do. The idea is a lot of the pieces that we're talking about have come from James Clear, and talking about his ideas around identity and how we see ourselves today. The idea that If we view ourselves as healthy people that exercise, that go to sleep on time, that like to prep healthy foods, that becomes who we own that. But when we see ourselves as the person that maybe tries to do those things, or I don't have the energy to do those things, but I really want them, I would like to be a healthy person, all of those simple semantics with us actually make a really big difference in how we view ourselves and how well we're doing. So it's really important to actually own that identity, and that's what we're going to talk about today. Okay, so before we get started, as always, for any of you that have been on our webinars, we do have to do our disclaimer. The presentation that you're about to view is the intellectual property of the Department of National Defense. Any reproduction or retransmission of these slides contained in the presentation is strictly forbidden. Some of the topics discussed in the webinar may be of a sensitive nature, although that is unlikely with the topics that Carissa and I have chosen. And may not be appropriate for children. So we just ask to watch if your little ones are around. Please understand that people's stories are theirs alone to tell, and this is one of those webinars where we really hope that people are going to share and contribute in those ways. But anything that's shared by the participants in the webinar, whether it's on camera or in the chat, is not to be discussed outside the webinar. Having said that, this webinar is being recorded and it will be available for later viewing. They're just about at the point where they've done a soft launch of the past webinars that will be available soon for other people to go back and look at and watch again, or if you missed something and you want to catch up, we're going to have all of those available shortly. So knowing that, understand that we really do encourage you to participate in the chat. However, if you feel more comfortable just sitting back and listening, that is okay with us as well. So just finding out a little bit about you. Let's find out who everyone is. We're going to go with the first poll asking how you're affiliated with our organization. Okay, a few more veterans on the line.
Oh, nice.
Excellent.
Yeah, awesome.
Brilliant. Okay. Awesome. Nice distribution. Excellent. Okay. Thank you for sharing that with us. Really helps us to know who's joining us and if we're hitting the mark with things.
So the first conversation that we're going to talk about that probably needs changing is the whole notion of what is health? How do we define health? Anybody who's heard of the World Health Organization definition of health knows that it's, in a nutshell, it's about more than just the absence of disease. So it's more about all of the other pieces that go into defining and deciding who we are and how we are functioning in the world. And yet, when weight is discussed with respect to health, so very often it is with respect to those negative associations that are linked to the morbidity and the morbidities that go around with that, and the health concerns from the negative side of the house. So there's this tension between how do we define that? Can we look at weight in a different way, or is it always with respect to those negative connotations? And when those negative connotations are the thing that we seem to hear about the most often, that's going to impact how people view that. And it never looks at or considers the genesis around why people might find themselves struggling with that in the first place. There's never a recognition of what happened that caused this to be something that a person is struggling with. And without looking at that, there's very little chance of being able to move forward from that. So part of those conversations result in this bias. Do you guys think, do you believe there to be a bias? Hi, Tyler from Sudbury. Do you believe there to be a bias? And you can just put yay or nay in the chat around health and weight. Do you think that there's a negative bias that is out there in the world that we deal with? Yeah.
A resounding yes. Absolutely.
Oh, and a yay. Cameron, I love the literal instruction following. Yeah, for sure, right? And so when that bias is there, And it's not even just, and last week we talked a lot about where those images might come from in terms of the social media, the expectations that we have with all of the magazine covers and the movies, and these unrealistic expectations that are put upon us as people to try to achieve. The conversations that we have end up being reflected in the conversations that we have, right? So what we are told, what we are receiving from the world is what we now start to spin in our heads necessarily, because that happens no matter what it is that we're talking about. You know, if we're talking about gray hair, then we're going to be having those conversations around, I don't want to look old because there's ageism and people don't like it when we get old, and we need to be young and fruitful. And so, oh my gosh, I better color my hair, because even if you're prematurely gray at 19, like my dad was, you know, there's a bias around that. So the same thing exists. So those conversations that we end up having with ourselves often revolve around blame, shame, guilt, embarrassment, frustration, and those are influenced by the conversations that we have with our health professionals. And we know there is a huge weight bias among health professionals, our fitness professionals, because there's expectations that they have that everybody's going to be the same across the board and everybody's going to have the same abilities. And if you don't have the same abilities, it must be because of some inherent weakness, and they point the finger at the most obvious target, and that is that you don't fit the mold of, you know, the JTF soldier. Or our peers, right? Because sometimes we can be really mean to one another, starting from when we're wee small, right on up until we're having conversations with coworkers, and you can feel that bias that's coming out in them. And then leadership, right? Because leadership has a requirement and an expectation for us to be able to do our jobs. But again, they are looking at it very surface. They're not necessarily looking at what are the things that are underlying that. What kinds of things culturally, environmentally, in the workplace, what are we doing to either contribute to or prevent people from being able to succeed in, to be able to move forward to that vision of success that we were talking about last week. So you can measure health in a lot of different ways. You can measure health by your blood pressure, by your cholesterol, by your glucose. If all of those things are good, you're healthy, regardless of what the number on the scale might say. You can also measure health by, can you climb 3 peaks in 3 days? Heather did it. I don't know that I could. I would probably fall down the mountain. Can you participate?
Well, I may have done that a couple of times.
Can you participate in, or have you participated in, an Olympic or even Ironman triathlon, or a marathon or a half marathon, right? Can you dead weight 200 pounds or deadlift 200 pounds? Can you take a sled that's loaded with X number of weight and drag it across a field for X number of meters? Can you do all of those things and still not be able to do a burpee? So what is actually the better indicator of health? Is it those blood measurements, those why is the word eluding me right now? I've clearly not had enough caffeine. All those measurements, the stuff that you go and get done when you're at the doctor, those kind of measurements. Those measurements are one thing, but all the other stuff that we can do is another. And so we need to parse the details around what is health and what is weight and separate them, because they are not the same. Because we also can't just assume, well, if we have a bias around health and weight and let's call it fatness, can you be thin and healthy or thin and unhealthy, right? Like, we can't assume that what's going on inside is reflective of what's going on outside. And that's what we're trying to say. What do we need to change? How do we need to shift those conversations that we're having globally as well as up in our heads? So the first thing that we're going to do, and I stole this actually from our physical activity guys over in STF, we're going to take a look at these 3 categories. And when you think about weight and health as they relate to these 3 categories, what kind of comes immediately to mind? What are the things that you're thinking? What are the things that are motivating or potentially demotivating just by the title? Can you see something in there that might allow us to frame more positively or more negatively the things that are going to drive us to that change, to move towards that success? Because how we frame it is really important in terms of our ability to follow through. You've got your intrinsic motivation and your extrinsic motivation. And sometimes you need to have both. Sometimes you need that kick in the butt to get you going, which is the doctor saying, yo, if you don't want to follow in the footsteps of your dad or your grandpa or whatever, then you need to make some changes. right? I did that when I worked in cardiac rehab. I had a conversation. I had hard conversations with people and they didn't like to hear it. And actually some of them went crying to their cardiologist and the cardiologist came and yelled at me. I was working as a dietitian and they were yelling at me like, why are you making our patients feel bad? I'm like, well, you just spent $1 million on their open heart surgery. Do you want them to go to the grave now, or do you want them to see their children grow up? Right? So these were the conversations that I was having with them, but it was in the context of how are you wanting to be different? How are you wanting to be better? So you need that external motivation, but at the end of the day, you also need the stuff on the inside that's saying, I want to do this for me. I want to do this because I want to be more content. I want to feel more satisfied. I want to prove to myself that I can do this. So we need to have both. So we're going to take a look at the first one, the functional benefits. And these are literally exactly what that says. So what are the things that you want to do? What are the things that you want to be able to do? Pass your force test more easily. I think everybody wants to be able to just go and do it and have it be done and over with and good. And you're ready to go to the next year. Being able to do all those mandatory rucksack marches without pain. Now, the Air Force folks, we heard that you don't have to ruck as much as our Army guys, but you still have to carry all that equipment at some point and do all that. I'm just joking. We work in Army. Heather and I are Edmonton, so we get the hardcore Army mentality. So we like knowing that there's people that are a little bit more open to hearing what we have to say. But one of the things on there, the participating in the Nijmegen March, Heather and I, that's on our bucket list. We want to do that. We want to be able to go and participate in something that's that monumental and that takes that much training and stamina and practice and energy and all of that. The getting up early, I'm not so much sure about, and the sleeping in large tents with numbers of people, I don't know. I think that might also be a challenge for me, but actually just walking it, I want to be able to do that. And then the energy. Don't we all want to have the energy to, at the end of the day, say, if I needed to, I could go out and do, 2 more hours of work, or take the dog for another walk, or throw the ball around in the green space with my daughter for, instead of being falling dead, exhausted at the end of the day, right? Those are things functionally that I think all would like to aspire to. Is there anything else that you guys sort of thought of when you saw functional benefits that you felt fit into that category? If you don't have any, that's okay. No pressure. Oh, perfect. Okay, glad you're here, Natalie.
Okay, great. Thanks,
Well, we
Natalie.
also need to think of the functionality of our Wi-Fi and our and our ability to log on to the networks and all of those kinds of things. So functionality sort of has multiple meanings in these crazy days that we find ourselves in. All right, good. Okay, so let's move to the next one. Oh, yeah, sorry.
Oh, great.
Good to know. But now everybody else knows, so thank you for sharing your learned experience. So the avoiding consequences, if we think of functional benefits as the carrot half of the stick, the avoiding consequences is the stick half of the stick. So we think of carrot and stick as the two sides of external and internal motivation, or the avoidance. So we don't want to have to release. Nobody wants to be told that they have to get out. They want to get out on their own terms, because of a fitness standard or a medical limitation or any of those kinds of things. You don't want to be told you have to change trades because you're no longer capable of doing what it was that you were supposed to when you were originally doing the thing that you had maybe signed up or worked really hard to achieve. You would like to avoid musculoskeletal injuries. And for those of you who are thinking more about those things, as we get older, we tend to be a little bit less bouncy backy in terms of what our body can handle. Heather's got a great series going, not concurrently because she's on Thursday, same time, same channel, on injury reduction. So you might want to tune in for that one. And then just the avoidance of health problems, right? All kinds of health problems, mental health problems, because there's a lot of stuff that goes on when we're having that constant negative conversation with ourselves that starts to break down our self-esteem, our self-confidence, and those kinds of things. And that takes its toll. So avoiding consequences, more of the stick. We want to have those, but we want to try to focus a little bit more on the things that are going to be more positively reinforcing or drive us to achieve more, which is the last category, which are, what are the things that matter to you? And hopefully you're able to come up with some additional ones and that's okay if you don't want to share, and hopefully you're sort of pondering these things as we talk about them, or as I ramble on about them, as the case may be. But we all want to do well in our job, right? We want to be able to not have any restrictions as to what we do. We don't want to have those MELs on there, whether it's a TCAT or a PCAT. We don't want any of that stuff. We want to be able to just do whatever at any given time, right? Which ultimately is the goal of all of us for, well, not civilians, but the universality of service piece, right? That's kind of an expectation. I know that there was someone on the webinar last week, I'm pretty sure it was this one, that was looking forward to retirement. That was something that they were having in their very near future. And when you join the military and you're young when you join, you're young when you retire. So you've got all these years ahead of you that you want to still be able to do all of these things that you've saved up for that you weren't able to do because you were posted or deployed or whatever. And along with that comes, in that retirement, still being able to enjoy your kids. And maybe that doesn't mean getting down on the floor and playing Legos, but it might mean going on a big family vacation where you're actually doing a trek through Sumatra or something, right? So enjoying the time that you have with your kids and your grandkids. I mean, I think these are, anybody who's got children or nieces or nephews knows how important it is to be able to keep up with them. So these are the other side of the drivers around why we all want to maintain that wellness, right? We don't want to just live long, we want to live long well, because we want that quality of life, not just the quantity of life. So when you think about these categories, think about the conversation that you're having. How are you talking? What are you telling yourself? I need to lose X pounds. I need to fit X size outfit. I need to pass the force test. All things that may or may not be more or less true or relevant. But when do we start having the conversation that sounds a little bit more like, I just don't care. It doesn't matter anymore. I give up. Like, I've tried, I failed, I'm done. Like, when that conversation is the one that we're having, we need to figure out why and how to change that. And that's where Heather and I draw the line around. When you are finding yourself in that spot, use those resources that we give you at the end to have those conversations, those hard conversations with. We're just here to provide a push in the direction of awareness and self-reflection. But if you're really having a hard time with that, reach out to the people that can have those conversations with you and work through that stuff that might be the tiny little break that is all that you need to just push you through, right? So it's one of those things that we really encourage people. So is the story that you're telling yourself truly your story, or is it one that everybody else has been telling you, whether directly or indirectly? Because the could've, should've, would've, that negativity that sometimes really plays in. So how can you choose to take that back? How can you choose to rewrite that story? Thinking about how we talked about success last week, what do you need to do to be that person who's already living on the other side of the finish line? And of those three categories, which of those are going to be the positive movers to help you to get there so that you can make those changes necessary to allow you to be there? So just think about that for a minute, and on a piece of paper, jot down those words. And I just made a little example. So what you want to do is give yourself enough room. So write I am with some space, and I can with some space, I will with some space. And some people do this exercise and they fill an entire sheet with I am, and they can fill an entire sheet with I can, and I will, and I do. And it's a great exercise to think about all the stuff that you are already doing and just absolutely killing it. And we need to remember those things. I am powerful. I am strong. I am competent. I will survive COVID-19, right? So jot those things down because they are action oriented. And it's a great way to, again, put in black and white all of those things that we need to remind ourselves of regularly so that we can picture that success that we want to have for ourselves as we move forward to that finish line.
Moving on to the next piece. How many of us put a qualifier on what happiness is? The notion that we will be happy when we lose weight. We will be happy when we win the lottery. We will be happy when we get that promotion. Why does some happiness have to be conditional on something that's in our future? Why can't happiness be in the present moment? What are the obstacles that you're putting in your own way of happiness? How much is that is related to the conversation that you're having with yourself? And how much of it is influenced by the social side of things, society, media, work? Absolutely, yes. 15 years left in your career, right? And do you want those 15 years to be joyful? And it's actually exactly what where I was going. You know, so many people come to our classrooms and they'll say, well, I've only got 17 more years till I retire. I don't know about you, but that seems like a really tragic way to view life. To feel that in 17 years, I get to be happy. That's a long wait for happiness. I try to find happiness in every single day that I have. When we are able to view happiness as something that can only occur when certain conditions are met, then what are we doing right now? How are we living right now? Are we sitting around feeling miserable, commiserating with other people, feeling bitter, looking for those people that'll bandwagon with us onto that misery wagon? It's just not a way that anybody would want or should have to live. That conversation is completely life-sucking for us. We need to take a good long look at how we're seeing things, which is why reflecting on how you see success and what success means to you is such a vital part of your life. The person who has not yet crossed the finish line needs a cheerleader to encourage them in their current situation. Not somebody that is being a negative Nelly about everything in their life being sucky. And maybe that cheerleader needs to be you, because who else is going to do it for you? If you're that person, that soul-sucking individual, you're not going to attract people that are living happiness in the present moment. You're going to attract other miserable, bitter, commiserating individuals, because nobody really likes to be around that for very long. You know, all of us like to have our pity parties, and thank goodness I have wonderful friends like Nicole, who's on the line, and Carissa and other friends of mine that I can call and say, I'm having a crap day, I need to vent and yell, and then I move on. And you know, that's important as well, but we don't want to get stuck in that moment in our lives. We need to stop living in the future or in the past maybe, and do all of our living right now in this moment. Be in the present, in the body that you have right now. I do not have a perfect body. I live in a pretty curvy body, but I can do all kinds of things. I climb mountains. You know, I just, my niece just gave birth to a great niece for me. So I'm very excited to now be able to get back to playing. My son is 28 and I haven't had the chance to play with a little one in a very long time, probably since Carissa's daughter was young. So I'm really happy that I have a body that I could still run around a playground with her and do those things and have fun. So it's really thinking about, what is the body capable of right now? Can you climb stairs? Can you climb a mountain? Can you carry your groceries? What's important to you, and where do you see yourself? You may not be able to do things in the way that someone else can do them, but you can do things. It's no different than, say, my son, who's an iron worker, and he's 6'4", and he tells me all the time, Mom, there's certain things that are a lot easier for me as an iron worker at 6'4" than it is for my 5-foot colleagues. On the other side of that, there are things in my job that are much easier for my 5-foot colleague than they are for me. So it's not about saying this body doesn't work. It's about saying, what does this body do well? I'm really embracing that. Maybe right now you want to be able to do X number of push-ups, and right now you can only do 10 kneeling push-ups. Well, celebrate that. I can do 10 kneeling push-ups. It doesn't mean that we're saying that you should just be happy with where you are and never try to move forward or do anything better. That is not at all the intent of what we're trying to get across, but rather to embrace who you are right now and enjoy the things your body can do and still grow and still want to do more. So maybe you're working towards doing those 10 push-ups, but you're really pleased with who you are today, and you celebrate every milestone that you reach. When you reach that first full push-up, you're feeling really excited about that. So what makes you happy? Yes, weight loss can bring confidence, absolutely, and self-esteem. But at what cost? What did you have to do to get there? And can it be maintained in a healthy and in a realistic way? And more importantly, does it make you happier? People believe they're going to be happier when they live in a smaller body. But if you ask most people that have lost weight, that isn't happiness for them. They thought they were going to feel happier in that smaller body. And while they may have gotten a small confidence boost, it didn't necessarily make them happier human beings. Okay. I am the greatest bird ever. I love a peacock. They're beautiful. How many of us say stuff like this to ourselves? I'm beautiful. I'm handsome. I'm really good at my job. I'm a great friend. I'm a kind and loving spouse. I'm a good mother, or I'm a good father. Not a lot of us are running around saying those things to ourselves. We often are saying more deprecating stuff to ourselves, how horrible we are at things, what a stupid mistake we had made, I don't have any self-control. Those are the kinds of things that are happening inside the brain rather than looking at what we do really well. Why don't we appreciate ourselves in this instance? If we don't, who will? Change starts with us first and within, and we have the power to be or do whatever it is that we choose to do. It may not happen in the time frame that we have given ourselves, that we have decided that that's when we should be able to meet those milestones, but we can change if we choose to. But we need to change for the right reasons. We need to change because it's what we want, not because it's been predetermined or pushed on us by society or by the culture within which we're working. Those are the things we need to consider. So really think about embracing where you are right now. Embrace and love the body you are in. And I know that's not an easy thing to do with so much being thrown at us from the media about what beauty, what healthy looks like. Weight is not a behavior. Weight is not an indicator of your success or your failure. It's a number. That's it. It's also not an excuse. It's not an excuse because we see people every day that are doing amazing things in bodies of all shapes and sizes. We see very strong people that are living in very thin bodies. My son is 6'4" and he weighs 170 pounds, but he carries around 80 pounds of equipment all day, every day. On the other side of that, you know, I'm a short, thick girl that climbs mountains on a regular basis. I may not do it fast, but I do it and nothing stops me. So, and I bet you every one of you that wear a uniform or have worn a uniform met somebody in your career that you went, wow, I didn't think that person could do that in the body they live in. And yet they were doing it, whether it be running or lifting or whatever it might be, they surprised you. They weren't what we expected from that body. So while we're not saying that you should simply accept where you are and that's the end of it, we are saying that wherever you are right now is simply a point in time. It may be a starting point for you. It may be a midpoint. It may be that you're really happy with parts of who you are right now. But do all that you can to embrace the moment that you're living in right now. Whether you want to compete in Ninja Warrior or you already can or you never want to, you're still able to do many things that in the body that you live in. And it doesn't have to look like a certain type of body. You don't have to look like an Adonis or a supermodel to be a functional human being. In the society we live in and in the community we work in, there's a lot of judgment. Of judgment about our abilities based on our exterior. But it isn't always accurate, and it often doesn't tell the whole story about a human being. In fact, I would say it probably never tells that whole story. There are many people doing amazing things right now in a body that an average sized person couldn't do. So look for those moments in your life. Celebrate those moments. Embrace those moments because we all have them. Use them to motivate you to take the next step in your life. And pretty soon you'll be building up this motivation that's going to reach you towards your goals. Rather than having this endpoint that you say, I have to be here when, we really want you thinking about the system in which you live that's going to support that and practice that. And it's all about the little tiny habits that are living the identity that we want to be. So as I had said in the beginning, I am a healthy person who likes to prepare food that's nourishing and healthy for my body. That's the identity I'm living. And if I believe that, then I'm going to have habits that support that. When I get up and I make breakfast in the morning, I'm thinking about what am I going to eat that's going to support this body. So those are the little tiny things, and it's small. It doesn't have to be huge, life-changing things that we do. It means maybe we're saying to ourselves, I'm not going to sit for more than an hour. If I want to watch television, I'm going to get up and I'm going to move around every time a commercial comes on, because that's the identity I live as a healthy human being. So just some food for thought on that. Okay. So just a few takeaways for us, for you today. Oh, sorry, Chris, I missed the homework.
No, that's okay. Yeah, no, that's fine. So yeah, the homework is Heather going to put it up?
Sharing it right now, yeah.
Okay, perfect. So it's there if you would like it. Again, what we're trying to get you to do is just, because it's hard to, in the stress webinar that I'm doing, I'm talking about what's happening to our executive functioning, and it's kind of taken a big bit of a hit right now, and it's happening to all of us, and you might experience that sudden memory loss, or that why did I go into the basement again? And that's not Alzheimer's, it's COVID. And not that you have it, but I mean living in it. So the handouts are just meant to act as a reminder, as a memory tool to allow you to remember and reflect on what it was that we were talking about, as well as give you an opportunity to do a little bit of work on yourself, because we all could benefit from that. So the homework this week is looking at those three categories: the functional benefits, the avoiding consequences, and what matters to you, and filling that out for you. Filling out those categories for yourself, and they might be similar to what was on the screen and maybe completely different, and that's totally fine, because this is about you. And again, it's just so that when we have it in black and white, it's easier for us to move forward. And then there's a couple of things to get you thinking about, what is it that we want to do? And before you think that Heather and I are schizophrenic, because we're talking about, living your successful you, living like you've already crossed the finish line, which is somewhat future oriented, and at the same time saying live in the present, those are the same thing. Because we want you to live in the present, in the body that you have, doing the things that you would be doing as that successful person. That's not a future person. It's not a future version of yourself. It's the version of yourself that you can create for yourself in this moment, despite any of the other things that you're still working towards. So they're not two separate halves. It's the same person. It's the successful person living in the body of the person right now in this moment and taking advantage of everything that you have, right? So it's this complete sum total that we're trying to get you to consider. So if you want the handout, then there it is for you. If you are happy with, is it shared?
I did share it, yes.
Did it? Okay. Yeah? Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not seeing it, but that's okay. It's okay.
Okay. Okay. So leaving you with a few takeaways, as we always do, your takeaway messages to pack for your journey. So redefining health on your terms, not based on those traditional measurements, and finding your own motivators, changing the conversation you have with yourself. Stop deferring the happiness until someday. Embrace it today. Write down your story and choose your own narrative. It's about that self-reflection that Curtis is talking about. Look at where you are right now. What are you doing? Why are you doing those things? Are you happy? And are these behaviors reflective of the person you want to be? When you think of health, think of it as a whole package, not just what it looks like from the exterior. The physical, the mental, the emotional, it's everything. Can you do the things you want to do? And if you can't, then what do you need to shift so that you are capable of doing those things that you want to do? What motivates you? The idea of being able to train for an Ironman, maybe, that could be a reality that you're aiming for right now. I have a friend that she doesn't live in a traditional body either, or an average body, shall we say. And she has been working towards running an Ironman. Sadly, COVID has put a bit of a wrench in that, but she trained for it and she was ready for it. And last year she ran her first sprint triathlon, and she didn't even know how to swim. She's 50 years old and she had never swam a stroke in her life, and she was terrified of the water. But she decided that this was something that she wanted to do. And it didn't come easy, but she did it. And now she's going to be able to do that again next year, and will continue to train for that and make it happen for herself. Does it mean that she'll win a medal? Probably not. She doesn't have an Olympic gift, but she is able to say, I did that. And I checked that off, and it was important for me. So stop putting off that happiness until some future point. Think of it as something that you're doing, living today in that present moment. Carissa was telling me the story about this woman that had been struggling with her weight her whole life. And then she had some kids, and it added to that challenge. And then she decided she was going to compete in this fitness competition. So she ended up losing all the weight, looking absolutely wonderful and feeling great and reshaping her body. And she discovered that she was no happier in that thin body than she was in the original one. Now, does that mean she should revert back to the body that she was in? Well, probably not. And she didn't. She decided to maintain it and continue to do things that were supportive of that, but she also made decisions that wouldn't sacrifice everything in her life, the time with her children, the other things that were important to her. So she found this balance and a way of integrating both of those pieces into her life with daily habits. So write your own story. And I like how that sounds. No one gets to decide for me who I'm going to be, what I'm going to do, how I am going to live. I get to decide that, and so do you. So write the most amazing story that you can for yourself. And it doesn't mean you have to do amazing things that end up in history books. It just has to be amazing to you. A normal and mediocre life can be just as beautiful. You know, I don't have big glory goals like that. I just want that happiness in my life, and I'm happy with my simple life. I'm happy with my simple home and with my simple life with my husband. So it doesn't have to be glorious to the point where it's going to make the news or end up on television. It really just is for you. What is an amazing story? So as Carissa said, these are the resources we were referring to. And some of this is really challenging for a lot of us to get to a point where we're feeling okay. We might be nodding our head and saying, yeah, absolutely, I agree with that. And yet there's a part of our brain that just won't let us go there. And it may be that we need somebody to have that conversation with and help us work through that conversation that's happening in our head. So don't be afraid to reach out for the kind of support that you might need, or if there are other things going on in your life that what we're talking about today in this webinar don't address, make sure you're reaching out to those resources because they're there for you, and tap into all of those things that are available. Any of our civilians that are online, you have the same resources available as the Canadian Forces Member Assistance Program through your EAPs. So both the CFMWS employees as well as our public servants, they have very similar resources available through their employee assistance programs as well. So leaving you with our last two polls, just to make sure we're doing our job. If you can just answer if there's things today I feel I can apply, what I learned today in my daily living. Awesome. Thank you very much. Okay. And nobody can see these results but us, everybody. And the last one for us is just looking at our Demio platform and how well you believe it is working for you. Wonderful. Thank you, everybody, for answering those questions for us. It really gives us a sense of what we need to change and how we're going to proceed forward in the future. So thank you for joining us today. Next week, we will be talking more about those systems that I was talking about earlier, all of those daily habits that we have that project us towards the future. What's happening?
The poll says dissatisfied twice.
Oh, my bad.
So, okay, everybody's, I'm sorry that you're dissatisfied.
I did it again, Carissa. I did this once before, by the way, guys. Apparently, I should not be the host. You're not allowed to be happy. I think the last time, though, it was the other way around where everyone had to like us. So, so now everyone has to dislike us this week. We will we'll make assumptions based on the identity we want to live that we are amazing.
Or they apparently. Today we're sucking. Today it's all about, it balances out though for the other poll where we only had satisfied on both sides. So it all comes out in the wash.
Oh dear. This is why it happens when you load a room at 9:30 at night, which is what I did.
Honestly, it's okay. Well, thank you so much, everybody. I loved the comments. I was trying to respond as Heather was chatting, and I know it's hard, and I've got like a double keyboard system set up here, and one keyboard is enough for me, and now I have two, and I'm still messing up. So thank you so much for those great comments, and we hope to see you all back because we've got 4 more episodes. Next week, we're going to be looking at systems and how we need to break that down to like little parts and not worry so much about like these big, huge, monumental tasks. And again, it applies to so many levels. And so hopefully people are able to take the pieces that work for them. TikTok, really? Okay, I have to check that out because
I
like
know they had classes online, but we really appreciate that because that's really our goal for when we're teaching is we really try to bring in the audience, and there's limitations obviously from a virtual platform, but that's really what we want the more of because that's where what we really enjoy doing is having that back and forth interaction with our audience.
See my hair. I'm getting my hair cut today at 12:15. Jim Carrey is going away. Bye, Jim Carrey. Say farewell. Oh, all right, you guys have an awesome week. We'll see you next week. And it's true. I go out to walk the dog and I'm like, I have to wear a hat. You're very welcome.
To look like my dog, to be honest.
Thanks, Cameron. Take care, everybody.
Bye, everyone. Nicole, if you're still on the line, we were hoping to have a chat, so maybe we can get off and get on to WhatsApp. Would that make sense? Yeah.
Yep.
I don't know if she's there. So.
Au revoir, Florence. What's the word?
Okay. Perfect.
Okay. All right, everybody. Take care.
All right. Okay. Bye, everyone. Almost everyone's gone.
There's still 5 people left.
Yeah. Just wait. Make sure no one has questions.
A bientôt. Is that what I was trying to say? I can't remember.
What's the word? What did you say?
For like till next week.
Oh.
But I don't know if that's right. I have to ask Daphne. She's upstairs. I heard her wake up, so.
Oh, okay. I don't know. I need my son.
I know. Oh. Okay. I think that's just us now. High five, virtual high five.
Still got Rochelle and Tyler here, so.
Don't leave me hanging.
Don't leave you hanging? I don't know if that works. Does that work?
I know.
A little bit weird.
Oh, he waits. Okay, he wants to screenshot. Okay,
Oh,
bye.
okay, perfect. Bye-bye. Okay, see you in a few minutes, Carissa.